cherry-picked data? How do you mean how do you mean that?
So it is very unscientific and flawed to pick a single study or a single statistic and to discuss it in isolation.
Totally agree.
Medical experts are able to talk about all of the evidence as a whole.
Totally agree. So it's good to look at systematic reviews, right? That's the gold standard of evidence when you're trying to understand whether something works or whether it doesn't. So the British Journal of Medicine looked at 61 systematic reviews with the conclusion that, quote, there is great uncertainty about the effects of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries in young people. Journal of Endocrine Society came up with the same conclusion. Even the American Academy of Pediatrics, they all cite the lack of evidence. And so here's the thing. If you're doing a therapy and it's, temporary, whatever, fine, maybe let's try it, let's see if it works. But when you're talking about permanent physiological changes, do you not agree, just from an ethical standpoint, that you might want extremely strong evidence of the benefits? And there is no systematic review that states that there is strong evidence of benefits.
Sir, are you aware of how the quality evidence grading system works and how it's applied?
Yeah, we read through it. That's why I'm citing these journals. So which journal says something different? We should have that debate. Tell me a journal that has done systematic reviews that cites different evidence, that cites strong evidence for benefits of these therapies.
The standards of care were developed based on extensive...
You're not telling me any journal, you're not telling me any study. Don't say standards of care.
Yeah. So...
tell me one.
The standards of care.
That's the standards of care. That's
of
not
care.
a journal, that's not a study. That's not an organization, that's not an institution. You're just saying words. Name one study. Yeah. I'm out of time. I yield back.
Yeah, so that was a fascinating exchange for a few reasons, okay? One, because Dan Crenshaw did something that the leftists pretend like doesn't exist, okay? He named a few systemic reviews, actually, that basically conclude that, hey, there is a high degree of uncertainty with this stuff, which, in my opinion, is probably where we're at right now when it comes to the science. Uncertainty. And when you have this level of uncertainty in regards to how to effectively treat gender dysphoria in children, it's probably best to take the safest route possible, which does not include life-altering and potentially permanent bodily changes, hormonal changes to children before they're finished growing and going through puberty, okay? Because we know that potentially putting them on these drugs is permanent, and if the regret is delayed, okay, it comes on later on in life, they can't just reverse it. They can't go back, okay? However, if you delay so-called gender-affirming care until they get older, until their brains develop more, and they know, okay, this is exactly what I'm doing, I understand exactly what I'm doing, what I'm getting myself into, then at that point, that person can still, get on these drugs, go through these surgeries, transition if they want to, but they've had enough time to think about it to make sure that this is something they actually want to do, okay? And if they want to go back, if they say, hey, you know what, I'm not actually trans, cisgender or whatever, no harm, no foul, because they didn't go through any of these treatments. But, again, this doctor says that that's wrong, okay? That not letting kids do that, not pushing them on puberty blockers and hormones and the surgeries is actually doing them harm. So when asked to back up these radical claims with actual science that supports this, this so-called doctor fails epically, okay? She can't even cite a single study, okay, or a meta-analysis that basically strongly supports the benefits of gender-affirming care. She cites the standards of care, aka the woke standards of care, which is basically a guide on how to treat children with gender dysphoria, how to deal with it, using studies, okay, with citations from studies that were cherry-picked by woke activists to support the benefits of gender-affirming care. Now, again, nobody ever questions the quality of the studies that are being cherry-picked to be used in these standards of care, but, hey, they just cite that as if that's the gold standard, like that's the Bible of gender-affirming care for children, and you can't question it, okay? Don't question it at all, right? So, with that being said, we actually have a real doctor who's not even a medical doctor, a psychiatrist to be exact, Miss Miriam Grossman, who's going to go in on this woke doctor, Dr. Meredith McNamara, about the real science, or shall I say lack of science, behind so-called gender-affirming care. So without further ado, let's roll the clip.
My name is Miriam Grossman. I am a board-certified child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist, author, and senior fellow at Do No Harm. I have been taking care of patients for 45 years. I'm going to use my time to respond to Dr. McNamara. First, I'm struck by her use of the phrase, sex assigned at birth. Sex is not assigned at birth. Sex is established at conception, and it's recognized at birth, if not earlier. Dr. McNamara claims that her views are science-based, but to claim that sex is assigned at birth is without any scientific basis whatsoever. Its language misleads people, especially children, into thinking that male and female are arbitrary designations and can change. That is simply not true. Dr. McNamara claims that social and medical interventions are the only evidence-based treatment and that scientific evidence shows it is life-saving. Without it, she's warning us, kids will commit suicide.
Yep, that's what they always say, right? That's how they fearmonger you into going along with everything they say, right? If you don't go along with what we say, if you don't believe our science, then you're contributing to kids deleting themselves. This is what they say to try to guilt trip you on this stuff.
Well, a growing number of countries have effectively banned the care to which she's referring. And thank God there's been no wave of suicides or other mental health catastrophes.
Yeah, like they haven't been for years, right? When it comes to this specific issue. Again, if this stuff or not giving gender affirming care was as dangerous as these people want to make it out to be, we would have seen the mass genocide that these people claim will happen. We would have already seen it, right? But we haven't seen it. Okay, why haven't we seen it? If that is the outcome of not allowing gender affirming care, we have not seen it. Okay, again, this stuff that they're pushing on people is more fear than science.
3 years ago, Finland placed strict limitations on medical interventions for minors. Sweden did the same thing after a 14-year-old girl was found to have osteoporosis and spinal fractures from puberty blockers. An investigation concluded, quote, the risks of anti-puberty and hormone treatment for those under 18 currently outweigh the possible benefits. The UK conducted a review and called the evidence very low. They've also placed severe restrictions on the care that Dr. McNamara calls life-saving. Norway also analyzed the data and has made similar changes in policy. The National Academy of Medicine in France warned, quote, great medical caution must be taken in children and adolescents given the vulnerability of this population and the many undesirable, even serious complications the therapies cause. Doctors in New Zealand and Australia have published similar statements. Is Dr. McNamara suggesting that all these countries are rejecting evidence-based treatment and placing their kids at risk of suicide?
Basically, right? I mean, that's basically what she's implying. This is what they're saying. Okay, but again, it's funny because apparently those doctors aren't legitimate. Okay, those studies aren't legitimate. It's all about these woke academic institutions, a lot of them in the United States, that have gone along with the woke agenda, right? They want to get paid. That's what it's really about, more so than anything. They all are signing up for it because it's a money train, right? They know that the science on this stuff is not settled. They know this stuff is potentially harmful. This is what they're saying behind closed doors. But they also know how much money can be made off of this. And that's what it's all about.
Regarding that point of view, Finland's gender expert, Dr. Rita Kaltiela, said, quote, it's purposeful disinformation, the spreading of which is irresponsible. All 7 countries, and Florida too, of course, concluded that kids don't need their development interrupted, the girls don't need their periods stopped and their voices lowered, and the boys don't need to grow breasts.
And she said right there looking. She's sitting right there looking. She looking stupid, bro. Right? She looking stupid. This is the first time she's ever heard any direct pushback to her nonsense. Okay?
What they need is psychotherapy. I have other objections to Dr. McNamara's testimony. She insists that her position, only hers, represents standard medical care. What she doesn't want you to know is that there is no standard. There's a debate. There's a fierce debate.
Facts. Facts. It's at best it's unknown. We don't know, right? There's a debate. It's something that again is being developed. It's developing science. It's the same thing that these people did with COVID. They put their political ideology over the actual science. Science is always evolving over time. It's okay to admit that, hey, the science is early on this stuff. We really don't know. But that's not what these people did during the pandemic. During the pandemic, they pushed their left-wing agenda as if it was science, and it wasn't. And it turned out that a lot of stuff they were saying about the virus, the vaccines, masks, all this other stuff, it just turned out to be wrong because it was never actually grounded in science. It was always just their ideology. That's what it was.
And on the side opposite her stand such prominent figures as Stephen Levine, Kenneth Zucker, Paul McHugh, and James Cantor, among others. These doctors are giants in the field. They have been treating transgender patients and gathering data and publishing papers about them, and I mean no disrespect here, but since before Dr. McNamara was born. The point is that those veteran clinicians and others who have wisdom and experience are ignored because they disagree with the current narrative.
Yeah, they disagree with woke ideology. They disagree with the incentive, the financial incentive of having a bunch of children who are going to get on puberty blockers and undergo these surgeries to the point where, again, they're going to need medical treatment for the rest of their lives on top of whatever other medical treatments they're going to develop, as long as with that they're going to develop as well too eventually at some point. Again, I mean, we're talking about probably hundreds of thousands of dollars per patient. Okay, millions of dollars, billions. Okay, I mean, this maybe could be $1 trillion industry. Who knows? That's what they're saying, right? That's what they're saying.
They're against medical interventions for the same reason those 7 countries are. There is no evidence of long-term benefit, but there is evidence of harm. I'll end by quoting Jamie Reed, the courageous whistleblower from the Children's Gender Clinic in St. Louis. I believe that hospital receives the medical education funding that we're discussing today. She said that doctors at that clinic said, "We are building the plane while we are flying it. We are building the plane while we are flying it." That's how they described the treatment at their gender clinic. Our precious tax dollars should not support such a perilous experiment. Thank you.
Wow.
My name is...
I agree 100%. Right. Facts. Nothing but facts. Okay. No narrative, no agenda. Facts. Okay. This is a good video to cite for anybody who, happens to need information about how to debate these fools on this topic right here. I mean, she basically laid out the strongest argument that I've heard in a succinct manner that goes against, again, the left-wing narrative when it comes to so-called gender-affirming care. So, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.